matters we need to address before the jury returns?
Not for the defense, Your Honor.
Nothing to the state, Your Honor.
Thank you, Sheriff. Let the record reflect all our jurors have returned to the courtroom. Ms. Ellis.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ma'am, we kind of left off where you were talking to us about what you were doing at Forest Ridge. Ma'am, while you were out there, did you have an occasion to work with Supervisor Allison Hutchins to do any activities out there?
Allison Hutchins, she was actually assisting me on that scene. I was actually the lead forensics person on that scene, and she was assisting me.
Now, after you collected all the evidence from that scene, were you asked, at any time were you asked to search for other evidence?
I was asked to go to another location.
Did you have an occasion to use a metal detector out at the scene?
There was another supervisor on scene. Her name was Heather Madry. And while I was collecting evidence, she was actually searching the scene with the metal detector. And then I came back to the scene, instructed by Corporal McMasters at a later time in the day, and searched another area of Forest Road with the metal detector.
And what, if anything, did Investigator McMaster ask you to look for at that time?
He asked me to look for the investigator's steward's weapon.
Thank you. Now, you stated that you had to go to another scene?
Yes, I responded to Newcastle Road. And do you know the exact address that you responded to Newcastle Road? 1336 Newcastle Road, number D2.
D as in dog?
Yes.
Now, what time did you leave Forest Ridge, or Forest Road?
The initial exit of Forest Ridge was approximately 13:25.
And what time did you arrive at Newcastle?
I arrived at Newcastle at approximately 13:38.
And for those of us who are not versed in the 24-hour clock, what time would those be?
I left Forest Road at 1:35 p.m. and I arrived at 1336 Newcastle Road, number D12 at 1:38 p.m.
D, I'm sorry.
D as in dog, number 2.
Number 2. And what, if anything, did you do on that scene?
At Newcastle Road, I assisted investigators with the search of the apartment. I also photographed the vehicle that was out front, and I searched the vehicle for evidence.
Thank you. Your Honor, permission to approach with State's Exhibits number 43, 44, 45, and 46.
Yes, ma'am.
to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 43, 44, 45, and 46. Ma'am, do you recognize those?
Yes.
And ma'am, how do you recognize those?
These photographs are photographs I captured on scene.
And what type of equipment were you using on that scene?
I was using a digital camera, a Nixon D90.
And did you receive training on that camera?
I did.
And did those photos accurately depict the scene as you saw them through your lens?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time I'd like to introduce State's Exhibit number 43, 44, 45, and 46 into evidence for substantive purposes.
No objection.
Thank you. State's Exhibits 43, 44, 45, and 46 are admitted for substantive purposes.
And ma'am, you said that you processed a vehicle at the scene there. Were you able to tell me what type of vehicle it was?
Yes. I photographed the vehicle and searched the vehicle on scene. I did not process it on scene.
Okay. And when you say you photographed it and got evidence versus processing, could you describe what the difference between those two activities are?
Processing, the car will be collecting forensic evidence such as trace evidence like DNA, latent evidence, gunshot residue, things like that. So the only thing that I did on scene was photograph it as I saw it and collect the evidence that was apparent to me visually.
And ma'am, what was the vehicle that you searched and photographed?
The vehicle I searched and photographed was a reddish colored two-door Nissan 300ZX license plate number B as in boy, D as in dog, K as in cat. Sorry, K as in kite, 5616. Excuse me.
Okay. And permission to approach the clerk?
Yes.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibits number 16 and 17. Ma'am, do you recognize State's Exhibits number 16 and 17?
Yes.
And how do you recognize those?
These photographs I photographed.
And ma'am, what were you using that day when you photographed those?
A Nixon D90 digital camera.
And ma'am, do those fairly and accurately depict what you saw through that lens on that day?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would introduce those exhibits into evidence for substantive purposes.
No objection.
Thank you. State's Exhibits 16 and 17 are admitted in evidence as substantive evidence.
Thank you. Now, ma'am, you say that you actually collected evidence from this vehicle. First off, tell us what you saw when you arrived on that scene and how you observed this vehicle.
When I arrived to the scene, it was an apartment complex, so there were, when you enter the apartment complex, it was almost like a sea facing you, so it was kind of apartments on each side of you, and the 1336 was facing you, like if you were driving into the apartment complex, and the car was parked to the right of that, facing another apartment complex, another apartment building, to the right of the 1336 building.
And how did you, or tell me what your process was when you got out of your vehicle approached the vehicle. Tell me what you did to photograph and collect evidence from this vehicle.
Okay. There's, when you get to a scene, there's always another investigator and officer there to advise you of the information. So I was provided information by Investigator Cristaldi and Investigator Monica, who were on scene, and they advised me that that vehicle was the vehicle that was driven by the person of interest in the case. So they asked me to photograph the vehicle and search the vehicle for evidence. So therefore, once I was told that, I went ahead and photographed the vehicle from all four sides of the vehicle. So I go from the right side, the left side, the front, and the back. Then I open the doors. I go from the passenger seat, photograph the vehicle as I see it with the door open. Then I go to the other side, photograph the vehicle with the door open. I open the trunk, photograph the vehicle with the hood open. I go to the hood of the car, photograph it with the hood open. And what I see obvious, if I see items obvious in the car, I will do a close, overall mid-range and close-up of the item. So,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
so if I see a cartridge case, I would photograph it as I see it from my lens. Then I will move into a middle range photograph of that item. Then I will move into a close-up of that item.
And then were you able to find any evidence? What, if any, evidence were you able to find in this vehicle?
In the vehicle, on my initial search, I found a bullet or a cartridge in the rear of the vehicle, a cartridge case in the passenger seat, and a clip, a cell phone clip in the passenger seat, and the registration to the vehicle.
Your Honor, permission to have her publish those exhibits?
Pass allow.
Permission to approach, Your Honor.
Allow.
Thank you. Ma'am, I'm going to put it on the L mode here, even though it's not playing with us very well. State's exhibit number 16. And ma'am, we can have the lights dimmed a little.
It's the sheen of it.
Well, I'm going to step back and I'm going to ask you to permission to have the witness step down and publish to the jury old-fashioned style, Your Honor.
Allow.
Thank you. Ma'am, if you could step down with those photographs. Thanks. Ma'am, in 16, could you please, back up, please? Could you please walk down and explain to the jury what we're seeing in the pictures here?
This is an overall of the passenger or left side of the vehicle.
And there's personnel in the background.
Yes, on that side you can. But what you would see here would be another apartment building facing that way, so he's parked towards an apartment building. Or the vehicle, I'm sorry, the vehicle.
Thank you. Just down. And now I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 17. Can you walk through and tell us what we're looking at?
This will be I'm sorry. This will be considered a close-up of the license plate.
And item number 43, if you could go through and show us what we're looking at here.
This is a copy of the registration that was found inside of the vehicle.
And were you able to, from the registration, ascertain who the vehicle belonged to?
Yes. You can see the name of the registration owner.
And what name is on that?
Carlos and Antonio Riley.
And is there also an address to which that vehicle is registered?
1336 Newcastle Road, apartment D as in dog 2.
Ma'am, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 45. If you could please show the jury what we're looking at in this photograph.
Okay. This is a middle range photograph of the area between the left front seat and the rear of the vehicle. And if you look closely, you can see a cartridge on the ground, on the floorboard.
Now, when you say cartridge,
A bullet.
Okay.
This is another word for it, I'm sorry. Right there. See it? Right there. And I'm calling it out to you. Right there. Can you see it? You need me to point it out to you? Right here.
Now I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 46. We can do the same with that.
This is what we would call a close-up photograph of the same item. So you don't have to strain, you can kind of see it in detail.
And State's Exhibit number 44.
This is going to be this is a close-up of the photograph this is a close-up of the cartridge or the case of a bullet. So it's a case of the bullet, and it's on the left or the right seat, so the passenger side seat, and it's the close-up of it.
Now, when you say a case, how is that different from a bullet?
It's from a fired bullet.
And you stated that this was where in the vehicle?
The front passenger seat, so the front right seat.
We're going to approach with what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 47.
Thank you.
Now I want to show you what's been marked State's Exhibit number 47. I see you're putting your gloves on, not to further contaminate that item. Do you recognize State's Exhibit number 47?
Yes.
And how do you recognize that item?
It has my original seal on it with my initials, my employee number, the date and time I signed it, the report number, and the item number 22 on it.
And ma'am, has that been previously opened?
It has been.
And when was that?
It has been opened 2 other times, one by myself with evidence review with Defense Attorney Charnes, and by an unknown person
Okay.
to me, an unknown person to me.
And ma'am, is that outer casing in the same or substantially similar conditions to when you packaged
It is in a similar condition to as I finished it.
it? Your Honor, at this time we'd like to introduce State's Exhibit number 47 into evidence and have her open it.
No objection.
Thank you. State's Exhibit number 47 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Permission to approach as she opens.
Yes, ma'am.
To ensure that the casing is not damaged, it is placed in a plastic container inside of the bag, so there is, when you open it, it is going to be inside of another container, which is sealed as well.
Thank you. Ma'am, I'm going to mark that as State's Exhibit number 47A. 47A, can you identify that item?
Yes, it is a plastic container that is used to secure the cartridge case.
And is that the item that you packaged?
Yes,
And is it in the same or substantially similar condition as when you packaged it?
it is.
Your Honor, at this time I'd like to go ahead and introduce State's Exhibit number 47A into evidence.
Approach the witness just briefly.
Yeah.
Thank you. No objection.
Thank you. State's Exhibit 47A is admitted.
Your Honor, permission to publish State's Exhibit number 47A to the jury. Thank you. Bill?
Ladies and gentlemen, you recall my admonitions to you previously about how to observe an exhibit. You want them to handle that, Sheriff? Sorry, it's in a sealed container. You can just take it, you can look at it, and then without comment, when you're done reviewing it, pass it on to your neighbor. I'm sorry about it.
Thank you, Your Honor. Permission to approach with what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 48.
Yes, ma'am.
May I approach as well?
Yes.
Thank you.
What's happening?
Well, just to follow you in your trail to the convention.
Thank you. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 48. Ma'am, can you identify that exhibit?
Yes.
And how do you identify that exhibit?
It has my official seal, and it says, let's see, bullet, and Item number 21, it has my employee number, my initials, the report number, the date and time.
And ma'am, is that in the same or substantially similar packaging as when you originally packaged it?
Yes, it is.
Has it been previously opened?
It has been opened by someone that I'm not aware of, but not myself.
Okay. And was it previously viewed by anyone else?
No.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to introduce State's Exhibit number 48 into evidence.
No objection.
Thank you. State's Exhibit 48 is admitted.
Your Honor, permission to approach and ask the witness to open that item?
Yes.
Thank you, Your
Commissioner
Honor.
Green.
May I approach it at a safe distance as well?
Yes. Yes.
Again, this is packaged in a plastic container just to maintain that it is not like damaged in packaging.
And we'll mark this as State's Exhibit number 48A. Ma'am, is this still in the same or substantially similar condition as when you originally packaged it?
Yes.
And how do you know that that's the item that you packaged?
It has my signature again with my employee number.
Thank you. Your Honor, at this time, the State would like to introduce State's Exhibit number 48A into evidence and have it published.
No objection.
We're going to follow the same procedure we just followed the previous exhibit. Sheriff, you would the first deal. Sheriff, if you return to the exhibit 2.
Thank you, ma'am. And after you didn't process the vehicle, but after you pulled the evidence out and rendered services at that location, where, if anywhere, did you respond to during that day? Did you respond any place after that?
Well, I escorted the vehicle to our secure tow lot, and then I responded to 1718 Rosetta Drive to assist with the execution of a search warrant.
And tell us what time you arrived at that scene.
I arrived at 1718 Rosetta Drive at 5:27 p.m.
And tell me what you observed when you pulled up on that scene.
When I arrived on scene, I actually spoke with investigator A.K. Richards, and he advised that he needed me to photograph the exterior of the residence and the rear of the residence, and also assist with by escorting the vehicle that was out front back to our secure tow lot.
And did you have the opportunity to take photos of the vehicle on that day?
The photographs were taken by of the vehicle on scene were taken by our crime scene specialist, Marilyn Coble.
And did you view that vehicle?
Yes, I did view the vehicle.
Permission to approach, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 49, 50, 51, 52, and 53. Ma'am, I'm going to show you what's been previously marked as State's Exhibit number 49, 50, 51, 52, and 53. Ma'am, do you recognize these?
Yes.
And ma'am, I know that you did not take these photos, but do these photos accurately depict the scene as you saw it?
Yes.
And can they help illustrate your testimony here before the jury?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd like to go ahead and introduce State's Exhibit number 49, 50, 51, 52, and 53 into evidence for illustrative purposes.
No objection from the defense.
Thank you. State's Exhibits 49, 50, 51, 52, and 53 are admitted for illustrative purposes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Permission to have the witness step down and publish to the jury.
Allow.
Thank you. Ma'am, if you could step down for me. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's number 49. Could you please tell us what we're seeing in that photograph?
This is an overall of the driver's side of the vehicle.
Ma'am, which side of that vehicle?
The driver's side.
Okay.
Driver's side.
Okay.
Or left side.
Okay, driver's side. Ma'am, and this is item number 50. If you could please explain what that is to the jury?
Exhibit number 50 is the front of the vehicle. Front of the vehicle. With both doors open.
This is State's Exhibit number 51.
State's Exhibit number 51 is a picture of the trunk of the vehicle.
State's Exhibit number 52.
State's Exhibit number 52 is a close-up of the items inside of the trunk of the vehicle.
State's exhibit number 53.
State's exhibit number 53 is a close-up of the green tile that you saw in the close-up in the state's exhibit number 52. Excuse me.
Thank you. Permission to approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. The state has no further questions for the witness at this time.
Mr. Charles, questions of the witness?
Thank you, good afternoon. So you were the lead for the CSIs. What's that called? Is it just called you're the lead and CSI investigator? What's the terminology?
Basically what it is that there's like, on every scene there's someone who is a main contact or the main person that handles the majority of the scene, or the main scene, and then there's satellite scenes that are, like, for instance, there were multiple scenes on this call, so I worked the Forest Road and then other people went to the other ones, but I was the main person, so that's basically what that means.
So Allison Hudgens was under your direction at that scene because you were the lead.
Right, well, she's obviously my supervisor, but yes,
Right.
that's pretty much how it is.
Okay. Is it Marilyn Coble?
Yes, she's also she's my immediate supervisor, and Allison Hudgens is the supervisor over our unit.
But Marilyn Coble, on this day, you were the lead for her, correct?
Right.
Okay. Marilyn Coble was the person who handled the gunshot residue,
She responded to the hospital.
and was that under your direction?
I asked her to respond to the hospital.
All right. And tell us about, is there a form that's used that goes along with the gunshot residue test? You can tell the jury about it. Is there a form?
Yeah, there is a form that goes with it.
And is it important to have accurate information on that form?
I didn't collect the gunshot residue kit, so I can't speak on that.
But just in your position, you were trained about the gunshot residue test?
Yes, I am.
How much training did you receive about the gunshot residue test and how you take that?
It's fairly standard procedure to fill out the form.
And the form gets sent to the crime lab in Raleigh, is that right?
Yes,
And that form is part of the package that's sent.
right.
But you weren't present when she went to the hospital, is that right?
That's correct.
Did you later have any dealings with the form or sending off the gunshot residue test?
I send off the kit, yes.
So,
I submit, actually I don't send off the kit, let me correct that. I submit the kit to property.
okay. Did you send it off to Raleigh to the lab to be tested?
No, I don't submit anything for testing. That's up to the lead investigator, which that would be up to Corporal McMaster.
So that would have been his job to send it off.
Right.
Okay, thank you for correcting. Now, when you arrived at the scene, if you could help me on what time at Forest Drive, what time did you get there? And you have notes, is that right, that you brought up with you?
I do.
If you could refer to those and then,
Sure.
unless you remember.
I'm going to refer to my notes. One moment. I arrived at approximately 11:05 to the scene.
Okay, so if this took place somewhere, 10:15, 10:20, somewhere in there, you were,
I received the call or the request for forensics at 10:44 a.m. and I responded. I arrived at 11:05.
and is it fair to say before you arrived there, a lot of things happened to that scene?
It's fair to say that there was a lot going on.
So you described in diagrams and in pictures, there was a sheet, white sheet, at least one, if not two, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and those sheets, whenever this incident happened, those sheets weren't there.
No.
So, and you weren't present when whoever the first responder was on the scene, you weren't there at that time.
No, I was not.
So when the EMS got there, you were aware they cut some clothing off Officer Stewart.
All of the clothing that were cut off of Officer Stewart were actually at the hospital. They were not on scene.
Okay. So you weren't there, so you don't, for example, some things were piled up. Were they piled up to take the picture? I mean, they weren't all piled up when you got there, were they?
When I got there, the items that I took the photograph that I took is how they were when I got there.
Okay. So in terms of the gun holster, between that, say, half an hour or more between the time the first responder got there or the event happened and you got there, you don't know how those things ended up there because you weren't there.
I can't testify to how they got there now.
And as part of your job, do you basically go out and do an investigation who may have moved things around?
I do. I asked if anything has been moved, and normally if something has been altered, the investigator or anyone on scene will advise me of those things.
Okay. And in terms of what EMS might have done, you didn't talk to EMS whether they removed the holster, for example?
No one advised me of that, no.
Okay. But you didn't ask EMS, have a conversation with them, did you?
No, EMS was no longer there, so no, I did not.
And in terms of the wallet, how the wallet got there, whether it was in the pants when EMS was there, you didn't have a conversation with EMS about that, did you?
I did not collect a wallet on scene. Just one moment.
If you could go through, again, the things you collected.
There was no wallet collected on scene, I'm sorry.
Okay. If you could go through, could I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Could I take a peek at what you got there? Anything you referred to or read?
Oh, I'm looking at the report that you have of mine, and this is what I collected on scene.
Okay. Could I?
Sure. Go ahead. It's the same report you have.
So, the glasses, ball cap, holster, phone, silver chain, tennis shoes were found in
A shoe.
a shoe. And could I take a look at anything you referred to during your testimony?
It's all of my notes that you have already. Sure. You want the whole thing?
Just take a look. Thanks. ask, in terms of the distance, where things were, again, since you weren't there for up to a half an hour longer, you don't know where they were when this incident happened, correct?
I only know where they were when I arrived.
So much. Let me retrieve some exhibits.
Yes, sir.
Only my family said I should ask for help when I needed it, so I'm asking for help. It's kind of like guys asking for directions, doing that. With states 17, states 16, states 43, states 40. And would you open this one up again, states 40?
Sure.
Unfold that. And if you would take a look on 40A and down here near the bottom, what could you read that out?
B as in boy, D as in dog, K as in kite, 5616.
And then photograph 17, if you could hold this up and tell us what that is.
It's the license plate of the red Nissan, and the license plate reads B as in boy, D as in dog, K as in kite, 5616.
Thank you very much. And since I'm a low technology kind of person, can you read right there that it looks like there's a time and date stamp? What's the time and date stamp?
12/18/2012, 9:54:19 a.m.
Okay. And what's it say at the top?
Guest list in-house.
Okay. And are there two other plate numbers written down on the left? sign?
ACX, oh sorry, A is in apple, C is in cat, X is in xylophone, 9580 Saturn. B is in boy, F is in Frank, T is in Tom, 9532.
And do you know what those are?
I would assume their license plate numbers.
Okay. So this exhibit 40A that has the license plate of this vehicle in 16, is that correct? Could you hold that up here to see? That's the license plate for that vehicle, the maroon vehicle?
That, like, the license plate number is listed on this paper, yes.
Okay, so that's associated with 16, and that's the maroon car, and that you have the receipt in 43, or 43 is state's exhibit, and that's the registration, and that's for Carlos Antonio Riley, correct?
Yes.
Not Carlos Antonio Riley Jr.
Right, it doesn't say junior on here.
Okay. And I would ask if you could stand up, if you would please stand up and take Exhibit 16 and walk in front of the jury so they could see State's Exhibit 16 again.
Sure.
And this was taken on the, you took this one?
I did.
Okay, and that was on the same day?
Yes.
You know, it's a bright sunny day, right?
Or good camera. Or good photography.
There you go. You can just let the jury take a look at that. And you've looked at that photograph and you looked at that car, right?
Yes.
And that window looks real clear, doesn't it?
It appears so.
See right through it. Is that right?
Currently, at this angle you can, yes. There's also a flash on my camera, so you have to take that into consideration.
Okay. So let me ask you, take a look at 16 again. Your flash wouldn't go to the distance of 20 feet or so behind?
No, but you can tell that there's flash from this, you see the reflection here?
Yes, ma'am. But in terms of
It's a lighter day, yes. The day, I mean, if you look at my pictures earlier from Forest Road, you can tell that the day is a gloomier day, and as the day changes, obviously this is 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
That was at 5?
Yes.
Okay. So the day changed, and earlier that morning,
It was rainy and cloudy as noted in my report, that
and
is.
did you note the temperature?
I did not, no.
Was it cold?
I'm from Ohio, so, I mean, cold to me is not cold, so.
Well, let me ask you this, since you brought that up. I was going to say that for my last question. Is Ohio a 4-letter word?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are you done with this piece of paper, or can I put it away?
If you could hold on to that for a
Okay.
minute, I might pop back up there, since I'm a little scattered, so bear with me, I'll retrieve it. Do you, of your own personal knowledge, you don't know what officers had been on that scene before you got there?
Of my own personal knowledge, no, I do not.
And so you didn't see what they did?
I can only discuss what I did when I got there and what happened when I was there.
So from your perspective as a crime scene investigator, and especially as a lead, wouldn't it be better if everything was exactly pristine and hadn't been moved or changed?
That's generally how it should be when I get there.
Okay. But in the case where EMS is called, that changes the scene.
Well, certainly it does, in a way. I mean, anytime there's people in a scene, it does affect that, but I can only discuss what it was like when I got there.
And So I've asked this question about the temperature. Is there anyone at the police department that, in a case like this, that would document what the temperature was?
It's on a case-by-case basis. If the temperature is important in a general sense, then we would document the temperature, but at that moment, we didn't feel that the temperature was that important.
And over the course of the day, it got warmer on that day? And
Yes, it
brightened
did.
up,
It brightened up,
including your flash?
including my photographs. Obviously, you can see that.
And that's why you take the photographs?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's why we document them.
So again, the folks that were at the scene, you don't know what they touched?
I can only discuss, or I can only testify to what was there when I got there.
And you don't know what they moved?
I can only discuss what was there when I got there. I'm sorry.
And you don't know what they arranged?
Is that a question?
Yes.
I can only testify to what was there when I responded.
And did any DNA swabs taken there at Forest Drive of
No.
any of those items?
There were DNA swabs collected of certain items, but not on scene.
Well, did you take DNA swabs of any of the items that you picked up at Forest Drive?
Forensic Service Supervisor Allison Hutchins did collect DNA from certain items. That will be in her report.
Okay. And how about fingerprints?
No fingerprints were collected from the items. There were fingerprints collected from the vehicle,
Okay. And which vehicle?
from the Nissan.
And was the SUV preserved? There was a request to preserve all evidence in this case. Was the SUV preserved? Is it somewhere secure?
Not to my knowledge, it is not.
And whose responsibility would that be?
That would be the responsibility of the investigator.
So that would be Corporal Investigator McMaster?
Yes.
So if there was a request to preserve it and it wasn't preserved, that's
Your
not
Honor,
your...
she's already stated that, what her answer is.
Let me hear the question, and don't answer anything until I give you my vote. Let me hear the question.
No, now I've personally forgotten it, but...
All right, we'll start with a new one.
Thank you, Your Honor.
We'll start over wherever we're going to start. We'll ask the question.
Okay, the first question is, it's not your job to preserve the SUV if it's not requested of you to do that, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And so the person, the lead investigator, it would be their responsibility to preserve it if there was a request to preserve the SUV in its state.
Right. I work with the lead investigator, so we work together, and if there's things that he wants preserved or if there's things that need to be done, that's how we work together.
Yes, ma'am. And so the lead investigator is Corporal Investigator McMaster, correct?
Correct.
So it would be his responsibility to preserve the SUV if there was a request.
Yes.
I may have a moment, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Is that all?
That would be my questions at this time. I'll come and retrieve those exhibits, Your Honor, if I may.
Yes, you go ahead and put together the exhibit back to the original state, and then we'll, Mr. Chauncey will Ms. Ellis, additional questions of the witness?
No additional questions for this witness, Your Honor. Permission to approach with counsel?
Yes.
We're starting schedule?
You'll just bear with me 1 second.
Sure.
I'll be with you. I'll be with you in just a second.
Actually, I'll take the court reporter and just record this comment. Just if we hear a train go by, does that mean we're getting off early today? For all of us.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm going to ask that you leave your pads where they are, step into the jury room, remember those previous admonitions. Sure. Let's go to your deliberation. Strong.
Your Honor, the state's next witness, who would be Heather Madry, is at a training this week in California. And so she has been out all week, but will be back on Monday. She is our next witness, and given that it is partially through the afternoon on Friday, the state is wondering whether the court would perhaps consider an early recess today for the remainders of our Monday.
Does the state have any other witnesses that can call other than Ms. Madry to fill this time?
Yes, the state does have one other witness we could call.
And that would be Investigator McMaster.
All right, I'll be with you in just a moment. Mr. Charles?
Well, I can't go to California today, this afternoon, so I guess we're limited to what we can do here. I think Corporal McMaster's testimony might take quite a bit of time, just saying. So starting and stopping, if that were the case, then that might, it hurts me to agree with the prosecution, but I do. I stipulate that ending right now would be a good thing. And that would bring joy to many people. And justice would rain down on this courtroom. So I'll sit down now.
And there will be thunder and lightning and a train and the sirens and whatever else.
Amen.
Here.
Amen.
As you know, we're just trying to do the estimate of length of time. It's always a flexible, sort of moving thing. Do you anticipate an office, a witness after Corporal McMaster in your case in chief at this juncture?
At this juncture, we do not anticipate any additional witnesses.
And you're not bound by that?
Corporal McMaster, but at this time, no, Your Honor.
Well,
And while it's on my mind, I do have more workers' comp records to present to the court. They were delivered to me during CSI Jones's
testimony, and so I didn't want to interrupt that. But while it is on my brain, I would like to deliver
Hold
these
that
to
in
you.
your hand, right where you are. Here's my analysis of it, that I'm in agreement with each of you, and not to just to get off early, but because if we start Officer McMaster, being the lead investigator, there are going to be a number of questions asked him from each side, and we would start that and either interrupt it to put in Officer Madry and then go back with Officer McMaster, or it would take it out of maybe what would otherwise be a logical order. There may be something that Officer Madry says that refers to Officer McMaster, and then we've got the cart before the horse there. So I'm in the question about the numbers of witnesses dealt with. Helped me make my decision that essentially the last witness, initially the anticipated last witness for the state's case in chief would be Officer McMaster. It makes sense to recess at this point. We do have some non-jury matters, some matters on my running list to cover while the jury is gone. We can cover some of those. Some of those we may not be able to, but we can cover some of those while the jury is recessed for the weekend. But I'm in agreement that for the jury's benefit, the most logical order of things would be the way you two have sort of read it as well. All right, anything before I let the jury go?
Nothing for the state, Your Honor.
Nothing for the defense.
Sheriff, let's bring the jury back in. There are going to be some legal matters that I need to address, and because I'm not sure how long I'm going to take to be able to address those matters, and in view of the time, I could see a situation where you were waiting in the jury room and would just be brought back for me to tell you it's 5 o'clock and time to go home for the weekend. So instead, I'm going to exercise my discretion to include today's proceedings now. I'm going to go through our admonitions one more time so that everybody remembers. This is after we begin evidence, it becomes more and more crucial not to talk about this case with anyone, not allow anyone to talk about it in your presence, not talk to your even family and friends about it, not go to the scenes of places that might have been referred to. Try to avoid those if at all. I suppose if it's on the way to your house and you don't have another reasonable way, you can just drive, but short of that, we want you to be able to make everybody to
have the same information. All jurors have the same information upon which to make their decision. And it's the same information that each of you have and each of them have. That way we know we're all sort of playing by the very same rules. And so that's how important it is. So this, we've got a weekend, and sometimes on weekends, the temptation to say something about the case just arises. But I don't know what it is about the weekend. I checked, there is not a full moon, so you're safe on that front. But this is especially important at this juncture. You've invested a lot of time, everybody's invested a lot of time, a lot of effort, and we want to make sure that there's a fair trial and that we don't do anything that would cause the time we've all invested in it, and yourselves, to be for naught. So I'm making not just a legal plea as the judge who could hold you in contempt, I'm making a personal plea to you as a fellow citizen, wanting you to be in a good position to give everybody a fair and impartial consideration in this case. So, having said that, remember, do not communicate with each other or anyone else about the case. Do not allow anyone to talk about the case in your presence. Do not talk to or have any contact with any parties, attorneys, or witnesses. Do not conduct any investigation or receive or attempt to receive any reports or information related to the case from any source. And do not form or express any opinion regarding this case. If you will leave your pads in your seats as you've done diligently up to this point, we will make sure they're secure for you over the weekend, and we will see you here at 9:30 on Monday morning, just like we've been coming in at 9:30 on other days. So while everyone else remains seated, jury, you're excused for the weekend. Please try to have a